Everybody, welcome to Thru Board Game Blog number 38. Today we're going to talk about my top 10 favorite game designers. So a couple of months ago, Richard Ham of Rahdo Runs Thru did his top 10 game designers, and once in a while when somebody does a top 10 list, I'll get some geek mails or emails and say, hey, what do you think of this? What's your top 10 in this particular category? In this case, I got a whole bunch of geek mails and emails, so it seemed like something that people really wanted to know about. So I had to do some thinking about it and get some time to do it, of course. And I'm currently in the process of building my top 100 list. And when that kind of came into the picture, I kind of wanted to let's do that first, and then I can easier shake out my top 10 game designers. Before I do that, real quick, I'll take 10 seconds to do this. If you've noticed, some of my thumbnails on YouTube for the videos have changed. I was getting kind of bored of just uploading, just a box cover, and I put out sort of the word. And Adam Thiessen, I'll put his user on Board Game Geek when I post this on the blog there. He, out of the kindness of heart, generated a bunch for me, totally free, and for me to use, and I love them, and I've been using them and starting to integrate them into my video posting. So I've gotten some comments about that, and I'm actually meant to mention and thank him last time, but I cut that part out of the video because I was cutting some other part and then didn't realize when I was cutting it that, oh, I've cut out the whole thank you for Adam. So Adam, again, thank you very much for that. And again, I'll post his little user avatar on the Board Game Geek blog posting. So quickly, before I get into the top 10, I do have a couple of honorable mentions, of course. The first thing to note about this list is I kind of went by game count. So if you're a designer and you have a lot of games that I really like, that's going to move you up the list. Even though, going back to my top 100, my number one game isn't necessarily considered in this list, or it could be, I'm not going to tell you where it is, but it's not just because I have one game that I really like from this designer that I'm going to put them up the list. I want repeated, continual effort, and, not just like a one-hit wonder kind of thing. So they are kind of organized by that, by how many games from them that I particularly like. So keeping that in mind, I kind of realized as I was going through lists of designers and games, Sid Sackson and Richard Garfield aren't on this list. And I think if you were to make a list of designers that were like the best designers or most influential or something like that, they should show up on that. And I know on the Ludology podcast, they had like a Mount Rushmore of game designers, and Sid Sackson and Richard Garfield were both on there, and I think deservedly so. And I've liked a few Sid Sackson games, and I've liked a couple of Richard Garfield games, not just Magic, but also Netrunner he did, and King of Tokyo, and King of New York, and Robo Rally, and stuff like that. So he's well known for those, but that's only a few games compared to some of these other designers that have a lot of games that I really like. So just to sort of head off of the past, where's Sid Sackson on your top 10 designers? Well, it's because I only have a handful of games I like from him. Acquire and Sleuth and Venture off the top of my head are ones that I really enjoy from him, but that's only 3. The other 2 honorable mentions, these are sort of more legit honorable mentions, are Chris Taylor, and he does a lot of games for Victory Point Games. He did Nemo's War, Legions of Darkness, Moonbase Alpha, and a couple others that I'm forgetting right now. So he's got quite a bit. He kind of just missed the cut, so to speak. And then also Eric Lang, who's done a lot of LCGs that I've enjoyed. The Warhammer Invasion, the Star Wars LCG, I really enjoyed both of those. And another game, Midgard, I really enjoyed Dice Masters. And I think there's 1 or 2 others in there that I enjoyed. I'm really looking forward to Blood Rage, which is coming out, I think, later this year or next year. So those are kind of my 2 honorable mentions. And then finally, before we get to number 10, I have 2 publishers, Gale Force 9 and Fantasy Flight Games, because it looks like, according to BGG, all of Gale Force 9's games are designed by the same 3 people. So it's kind of a team effort, and it's sort of more of a company production effort, and they do outstanding work. Everything that I've played with them so far has been excellent. So I think in that case, it's kind of difficult to pick out the designer. I mean, they all could be a design team, but I just wanted to give highlight to that. And then, of course, Fantasy Flight. Probably the 2 well-known designers are Christian Peterson, who now owns the company, has always owned the company, and Corey Kineska, who has a lot of design credit on a lot of the games. But again, that's a big, full production type of atmosphere, I think. So again, I don't know all the inner workings of that, but I got to make special highlight to that because, again, all the Gale Force 9 games that I played, I've really enjoyed, and there's so many Fantasy Flight games that I've really enjoyed over time. So I just got to make a special highlight to that. And I think Gale Force 9 is kind of new into the gate, but Fantasy Flight as a whole, if I were to sort of call that a designer, would be, you know, they would be in here in kind of the number 5 through 10 somewhere, I would say, right there. So there's maybe higher. If I really thought about it, they would be probably around number 5, I think, you know, given the number of games that I really enjoy from them. So anyway, let's jump into the list. And so number 10 for me is Carl Chudyk. And Carl Chudyk has designed Innovation, Glory to Rome, Impulse, Red 7, and Flower Fall. And those are games that I've really enjoyed from him. Very excellent games. You know, lots of crazy card combos and abilities and things. So he gets a really big bump for me for that, because that is kind of a piece of the bread and butter that I like. I mean, if you watch my video at all, or my channel at all, you'll know that I like a variety of games, but I do like card interactions and multiple use cards. That's kind of like a sweet spot for me. That's a way you can kind of sucker me into a game that I maybe wouldn't be interested in. So he really excels at that. Lots of unique cards with various powers and everything. I mean, Innovation has 100% unique cards, which is amazing to me. So I really enjoy a lot of his games that I've tried. So number 9 is Mike Slinker, and he's kind of a recent favorite of mine. I think he kind of flies under the radar. He's well known now, I think, for Pathfinder the Adventure card game, which is a game that I've quite enjoyed in the past and have a really good time playing. The other thing that he's done that I really like is Lords of Vegas. Fantastic game. That's worked well in the family group as well as in the gamer group, so to speak, which is a very great game. I mean, really, I think, I don't know, underrated, overlooked. Fantastic sort of, I mean, you can throw it in that gateway game category, very easy to pick up and play, but you know, you make some cool strategic decisions, and there's a little negotiation and all that kind of stuff, and you know, pretty thematic and stuff. I like it. You know, it's got a good vibe to it. It's a very cool game, and you know, moves along in a good clip. The others that I like from him, Betrayal at House on the Hill, which I haven't played frankly in years now. I would say probably 5 years, but it's good. And then Unspeakable Words and 12 Days. I'm actually waiting for my deluxe edition of Unspeakable Words. I backed the Kickstarter for that. 12 Days is another underrated game. And then Mike's also been involved in the development things when he worked for Hasbro and stuff, Wizards of the Coast. I don't know all the details of that, but I know he's had a hand in games. Actually, I'm not even sure he's actually the designer in Betrayal on the House of the Hill, but I know he had a big part in that second edition. So he did a lot of games that I really enjoy, and very different from game to game. You know, 12 Days is not really like Pathfinder the Adventure card game or Lords of Vegas. He's got a lot of eclectic, you know, kind of variety in his style. And then I'm really excited for the sort of new game coming out. It looks like a very kind of Zombieland style of game, which is a somewhat older movie about zombies, kind of a comedy. It's a weird movie, but it's also like Pathfinder the Adventure card game style of game. So a very interesting game. So that's number 9 is Mike Slinker. Number 8 is Vlada Chvátil, who's also a very eclectic game designer. And I don't really actually like Through the Ages that much. I would probably play it like once a year tops, maybe like once every other year. It's been a while since I played it. Don't really care for that game, but I like a lot of his other games. Some of the ones that I like are Mage Knight is awesome, Galaxy Trucker's fun, Task Kalar is a very cool 2-player game, Pictomania I just played. So you know, you take Pictomania and Mage Knight, and you can't have 2 more different games. One is kind of gamer Pictionary, and Mage Knight is sort of like a, you know, refined Magic Realm adventuring, you know, game where you level up and you get new abilities, and it's super complicated and all this stuff. Another game like this is a Travel Blog, which we have lovingly called at the house here because we like to watch a lot of Amazing Race. I think we've literally watched every episode of Amazing Race ever. It's sort of like Amazing Race the game in a way. Well, it's without all of the, you know, tasks and stuff. You can just travel around the world efficiently doing all that. But that's another game that's really cool, very cool family game, and you know, super overlooked I think, but I would definitely take a look at Travel Blog. So he's another one that has a ton of variety and stuff, and I've liked a lot of his games. Funnily enough, I don't really like Through the Ages, but you know, whatever. A lot of these people on this list have made games I don't like. I think all of them have. So, except maybe the next one. No, the next one has. The number 7 is Chad Jensen, and the game he made that I didn't like was the Dominant Species card game, which I thought was awful. But that it is what it is. But I really enjoy Urban Sprawl, and recently have played Combat Commander. Really enjoyed that. And also have checked out Fighting Formations, which I haven't had a chance to play enough and do a review for. But like, I'm literally like, this is really cool. And then he's also got Dominant Species as well. So he's another one that, he's the only one I think I really kind of bumped up a little bit higher. Because remember I said at the beginning I went kind of based on the total count. He doesn't have the amount of games that I like from like Vlada and Mike Slinker and stuff. So he would kind of bounce between a 7 and 10, but the Urban Sprawl and Combat Commander are 2 games that I really like. I really love those games. So he gets a little bit of a bump because of that, but that's really the only one I kind of bumped a little bit because of that. So that's Chad Jensen. Also, you know, kind of a variety of games. You know, Combat Commander, Urban Sprawl, Dominant Species. Those 3 games are all, you know, kind of big gamery type of games, but they're very different from each other. They do have one thing in common though, is they have this very sort of chaotic roller coaster aspect to them. That's pretty cool. So number 6 then would be Ignacy Trzewiczek, and everybody knows him nowadays. He did Robinson Crusoe, another all-time favorite of mine. Imperial Settlers, which is sort of derived from 51st State and New Era, and I played a lot of 51st State when it came out, and I really enjoyed that, and frankly kind of like that better than Race for the Galaxy, which it also got compared to. Very cool, you know, dystopic, sort of post-apocalyptic theme, but Imperial Settlers is kind of like the refined version of that. He also did another game called The Convoy, which is really cool, and then recently The Witcher, which is a pretty good game, and then he's didn't design Neuroshima Hex, but he's, you know, definitely had an involvement, I believe, in development and playtesting and stuff. So he's not credited as the designer, of course, but you know, he's definitely, he's got his own company, he's a publisher in that aspect as well. So the levels of design and things that people get into, there's a lot of pieces to that, not just the rule design, but also like the look and feel of the game and the art and what we call like the user interface of the components, how functional is everything. You know, he gets definitely a good bump from that. To kind of put him into that aspect. And you know, Robinson Crusoe and Imperial Settlers are 2 games that I've really enjoyed over the last year or so. So that was number 6. Number 5 is Uwe Rosenberg, and of course most people in the board game hobby that know about this stuff really know who this guy is. He's the designer of Agricola and Caverna and Le Havre and Ora Labora. And he's also got the 2-player games, the Agricola 2-player game, which I really like with the expansions, and then the Le Havre 2-player game, which I kind of like as well. And then he also has done some other different games, and not just these big heavy worker placement games, but Patchwork, which I have and haven't played yet, and Mamma Mia, which is a really oddball game. I've reviewed it, so if you want to look at a game completely different from Agricola, then go look at Mamma Mia. And then another game which I actually don't care for is Bonanza, which Mamma Mia is kind of closer to that sort of style of game from Uwe Rosenberg. So definitely take a look at those. I think I'm the only person on the planet that doesn't like Bonanza. But so he is, I wouldn't say he's quite as eclectic as a Vlada Chvátil or Mike Slinker, but he's kind of like 2 schools. He's got the big heavy Euro, and then he's got the little light card game. And then now Patchwork, which is kind of an abstract game. And then Glass Road he's also got, which I didn't care for, but he also had some development work on Terra Mystica, which I really enjoy. So he's another one that is really, you know, his games always feel, they're like the epic Euro. You know, some of the Euros you sit down and you feel like, oh, it was pretty good. You know, it was fun and good strategy and nice stuff, but he pulls you into that, gets you that epic feel to it at the end of the day, where it's like, okay, I feel like I accomplished something, you know, by playing the game, like especially with Agricola and Caverna. Absolutely, you know, you feel like, you know, you've been through the ringer in some cases, but also, you know, you've got something to show for your efforts. So that's a tricky thing to really pin down in a game. Not just like, oh, we made a game happen. You know, it's like, oh, we did a thing that was awesome, and I got a story to pull out of it. And I do think Caverna and Agricola have that to it. So that was number 5. And number 4 is Wolfgang Kramer or Kramer. I don't know how to pronounce it. Now, he has several games that I like. El Grande is a classic. Asara is a really good underrated game. Linko or Abluxen is a cool card game. And he does a lot of his games with designing partners. He does a lot of Kramer Kiesling. I can't remember Kiesling's first name, but the Kramer Kiesling is a nice combo. They did a Palace of Carrara together, and I believe Wolfgang Kramer did Sealand with him or Gunther Burkhardt, I can't remember. A 6 Nimmt, which is a game I funnily enjoy. I like the Walking Dead version. It's got a weird variant, so that's why I have the Walking Dead version over the real version. Artis, which is a completely underrated, undersold game. It's super fun. And then Around the World in 80 Days, which is a fun game. I don't have this game. A friend of mine had it, but he moved to Seattle, and we played that a few times, and really, that's a fun little game. And I think there's a couple others I didn't write down here that I really like from him. So he's one of those, he's kind of like your traditional, if you think a Euro, like really stereotypical Euro, he's probably in there. But again, he excels at it, not unlike the number 3 designer, which is Stefan Feld. So these are like your 2 prototypical modern Euros, and Kramer kind of pulled us from, you know, the old days in El Grande into the modern days a little bit there. So Feld, though, I mean, he gets a lot of flack for a lot of reasons and stuff like that. I mean, he's easy to hate on if you don't like Euros. I mean, if you're like one of these theme elitists, which is a weird thing that's kind of happened over the last couple of years, it's ridiculous. But, you know, then you'll, you know, you won't like Feld, but or you could just might not like him for legitimate reasons too, of course, but he has this weird thing where he seems to be the best at, let's throw a bunch of levers and clockwork and crap and throw it in a game, and then you just have fun kind of, you know, manipulating the machine, if you will. It doesn't always work, you know. There's been games of his that I don't like, and some that I respect as a design but don't like in Near the Dragon, like, that's a good game, I hate it, you know. But there's like Amerigo where that's a bad game, I hate it. But there's several that I really enjoy. Castles of Burgundy is good. I kind of played that one to death, where it's sort of, I don't know, it's just kind of worn itself out, but I've got a lot of the different expansion boards and stuff, so it changes it up, and it's a quick kind of thing, like kind of like Ticket to Ride, where I can throw it out there or something as an example of just like, hey, let's throw Burgundy out and play it, and it'll be fun. You know, it's easy enough. We don't have to like be overwhelmed and awed and transported to this new mindset every time you play a game, right? I mean, you can just have a good time with the people that are there, and so the Castles of Burgundy is good for that because it's fun. It's you know, balanced and all that stuff, and feels very quick and easy to pick up and play after you've digested it a few times. So that's a good one for that. Trajan is very high on my list of games that I enjoy. Just a super nutty mechanic with the Mancala and everything like that. But probably my favorite Feld is Bora Bora. It's got a very nasty streak to it, which I really like. It's got some of that worker placement elements where you're placing dice as workers, but you're really cutting people off at the knees, and really enjoy that. But it's also got this whole Feldian, you know, you can score points every which way kind of thing, but you've got that attack ability, which is really cool, and just, I don't know what it is about that game I really enjoy. Bruges is another one that I've enjoyed, and I still need to play it with the expansion. It's sort of too random for me, but it's another one that, again, I really like the design. I can see why a lot of people like this, but there's just a lot of times in that one where you can get kind of hosed, and just I don't mind getting hosed by your luck, but this one there's something about it that's more of a letdown. But there's a lot of more mitigation in the expansion that I really need to try. Luna's one that I've enjoyed. It's pretty dry, but it's still fun. Aquasphere is kind of my Luna replacement there, because it has similar feels in terms of like going around these islands or this the space station undersea kind of thing in Aquasphere. So Aquasphere is fun. It feels like a collection of all of his different mechanics and stuff from the years past. So it doesn't really stand out above like Trajan or Bora Bora, but it's a fun, quick and play game. And I've had good luck with this one because a lot of people that actually don't like Feld in my group have liked Aquasphere. So I think that there's a feather in the cap there for Aquasphere on that. Spikerstat, completely overrated game, especially when you add in the expansion. Rialto is another one that I feel is overlooked and overrated because most people play a game like once or twice and then you know, then they move on from it. It's not just reviewers that do that, it's actual people that play a game once or twice and then judge it. So we're not the only ones guilty of that. Reality was very fun, and I played that one a good number of times. And that one's cool. I mean, that one I would say, if you thought it was kind of mediocre, play it a few more times. It's pretty fun. And then La Isla is another, probably the lightest out of these that I've mentioned. I mean, Roma and stuff, I didn't really like that one, but are lighter. And then he's got like It Happens and some other kind of kiddie ones. But La Isla is nice. It's a nice light one. And this is a good one to break out and play. Again, I don't always feel like I have to be completely overwhelmed and transported to a new sort of consciousness level when I play a board game. La Isla doesn't do that. I'm kind of being a jerk here, but La Isla doesn't do that, but it's fun. So that's why I like it. So that's Feld. So we're up to 3. So I'm going to recap. Number 10, Carl Chudik. Number 9, Mike Slinker. Number 8, Vlado Chvátil. Number 7, Chad Jensen. Ignacy Trevicek at 6. Uwe Rosenberg at number 5, and Wolfgang Kramer at number 4, and Sevenfeld at number 3. Now we have the top 2. I would say the top 3, kind of looking at my numbers here, are sort of like a little bit above the others. You know, they're like in a low sort of elite special class, if you had to call it that. You know, where it's sort of like you have, what's a good example? I can't think of a good example, but you think of like a musician or something. And for me, it would be sort of like Bob Dylan and Pearl Jam would be at the top. And then I would kind of like, you know, I don't know, Soundgarden and some other guy from the 60s. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So it's like those legendary guys, and then there's the ones that are really, really good. So the top 3 here are in that legendary category. So number 2 is Martin Wallace. And he's done so many different games that I really enjoy. And he's kind of off his game a little bit recently, I would say. But he's got a lot that I like. I mean, he's got the whole Age of Steam Rails of the World set of games. A Few Acres of Snow, which I still enjoy. I know it's broken. Unless you get the 2nd edition, it's not really that broken. London is one that I've really enjoyed. And like none of these I've ever reviewed either. London I haven't reviewed. Age of Industry I haven't reviewed, and I really should review those one of these days. The Discworld games are pretty fun. Liberté is really fun. The Last Train to Wensleydale, First Train to Nuremberg, or I have that reversed. Those are really cool. Those are funky games. Those are very strange. They almost feel like throwaway designs, but you know, he probably just kind of tosses them out there. I'm like, this is a really fun little abstract game. So really cool games. Aeroplanes, which is a very overlooked game, and then he's got the Testifier Bull Run, which is another one I never reviewed. That's a very cool, like, little war game. And he's got some other war games that I haven't played, like Gettysburg and gosh, some other ones too. And so he's got some others that I haven't played, some of the older, more war style games that I really like. But yeah, he's got a lot of games. The theme really comes through in a lot of his games. I mean, he's got those Empire series games, those Civilization games. Now, Tempest was one that I played. I hated that game. Well, I shouldn't say hated. It doesn't play good with 3, and I think for some reason at the time that really irritated me, that the game is like awful with 3. But if you play it with 5 players, then it's not so bad. But whatever. But yeah, Wallace is really up there, and I am excited to try some of his designs he's coming out with, you know, over the next year or so. And Mythotopia was a good game as well. I really liked. That kind of got replaced by Hands in the Sea, which isn't out yet. And then Onward to Venus, like that was, you know, it was okay, but not really that fun. And he, though, he's like on his own. I mean, you know, you can see a lot of people that sort of maybe they pattern themselves after Stefan Feld, for example, or after my number 1, and, you know, Wolfgang Kramer. They kind of fit in these other broader categories. But Wallace really sits, you know, on his own, and he I don't know, it's like a thematic Euro kind of thing. And he has his like tropes that he has, you know, with the kind of the loans or the penalties, like in London you get these penalties and stuff. But he has this sort of thing. It's very difficult to pinpoint, where like Rosenberg will make you feed your people kind of thing, and Wallace will make you have your loans, but he does it in such a way that it feels very natural and part of the game. Whereas Rosenberg with the feeding, it's like, okay, every 3rd round you got to feed your guy, you know. And so it's like, it works. I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. But his stuff is, it gets into the economics of it. It doesn't get into the point of moving into that sort of 18xx train game economic feel, which is like all those games are about. But it has that element to the games, like especially with Age of Industry and Steam, and those two kind of styles of games that he has, you know, Airplanes, Brass, Age of Steam, and it has those economic vibes to it. But there's a lot more extra stuff around just the pure economics of it. You know, there's little bits of chrome and things in there. So he's got a nice, you know, touch to his games that I really enjoy and really appreciate and have really enjoyed for a long, long time, to be honest. So anyway, that's my number 2 is Martin Wallace. And then the number 1, you might have guessed it, is Reiner Knizia. Now, he's easy to beat up on. And I was actually kind of surprised when I sat down and made this list, the number of games that I like from him. And I'm going to read you, I think I've got 15 written here. And I know there's some that I've forgotten or whatever. I know he gets accused of, and accurately sometimes, of reusing the same mechanics, over and over and over again. And he does do that. But he has a lot of different things that he pulls from. So let's just go through them, just to sort of, in this case, I'm going to kind of try to argue my case that he, as good as he is, he does get kind of bashed on unfairly. So the number 1 game here, these aren't in any order, is Tigris and Euphrates. Excellent, probably mostly agreed upon that it's his best game. Very unique design. It really sits apart from not just all of his designs, but, you know, all designs in general. So there's Tigris and Euphrates, sort of abstract war civilization game, crazy. And then there's Ra. I actually prefer Razia over Ra, but I won't split hairs. I'll sit down and play Ra. Very unique auction game with the whole sun tile thing, where, you know, you're not bidding money. You just have a number that you're like, okay, well, this is my 13. It's the power tile. I'm going to put that in and get all this stuff, but I'm going to take this crappy 1 tile. So that I haven't really seen that in a game ever, besides that one. And then Medici, which is similar to Ra, but I like actually Medici a little bit better than a Ra style game because, well, go watch my review on it, but it has a very cool auction-y kind of thing where it's got a push your luck thing where you're flopping tiles, so that kind of reminds me of Ra in that way. But you have a very defined and knowable set of tiles. I mean, even if you play less than the full player count, if you play with 6, you know every tile that's going to come out, so you can kind of count on it. But even then, you have sort of a knowable parameter that you're dealing with, and you have set upon values that everything is worth, but the players in that game can somehow still dictate how much this stuff is actually worth, you know, within a given amount. Because unlike modern art, which I've grown to despise, this one can still stay on the rails, because if someone shoots themselves in the foot, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. They may hurt you a little bit, but it's not going to be a catastrophe like modern art can be. Modern art's very dependent on players sort of, I don't know, it puts a lot of handcuffs on the game. And I used to really like modern art, and I don't anymore. But Medici is very interesting to play. And then there's Samurai. And Samurai is a tile placement game like Tigris and Euphrates, but completely different. It feels like you're playing electoral politics in medieval Japan, but it's really fun. Like, I don't know how this game accomplishes that. Very, very cool game, very cool pieces and everything in that game as well. But it works well at all the different player counts, the 2, 3, and 4 players. Really recommend this one. It feels very chessy, abstracty, but it plays quick enough, and it's not as dry as Through the Desert, which would be the other tile placement one, which I don't like. A lot of people like it. I don't like Through the Desert. But this has, you know, the special numbers. Some of the tiles are special, and it's kind of like, when do I use that? And everybody has the same set of tiles. So it's a game that you can get good at for sure. So I highly recommend Samurai. And then you've got some card games like Battle Line and Lost Cities. You know, you can say, oh, these games are sort of like each other, but they're really not. They're way different. Battle Line is a very dry, you know, sort of economical, weird, like poker set collection thing where you're like capturing these points. Very cool game, especially when you play with the special abilities. And then Lost Cities is just, that's like an instant classic. I mean, that, you know, it may not be the best gamery type of game, but a lot of people are going to be able to play that. It's very accessible. It's, you know, basically like a rummy kind of thing where you're building up this big set of cards, and it just works really, really well. And it's something that you can easily play and chat with your partner about, and, you know, just go, and it works very well. But it's also super strategic. Honestly, when you get into the card counting and, you know, the probabilities of what you're going to do and what you're going to hold back and keep from your opponent and all that kind of cool stuff. Very cool game. And then Ingenious, which is one I kind of like, but not a lot, but it's a very good abstract game. Out of all the abstracts of this style like Blockus and Genius and some of those other games. I would probably rather play Ingenious than most of those, so it's a very cool game. And it's kind of reminiscent of Tigris and Euphrates in a lot of ways. There's a scoring, but he's also got like the different colors and stuff. But hey, it's a cool little game. And he's got Blue Moon, which is sort of like his take on Magic the Gathering, which I think is a very, very good game. You can get the Blue Moon Legends, which is from Fantasy Flight, has the base game and then all the expansions. You can have a lot of fun with that game, definitely. Another one, a Dream Factory, which I actually didn't like at first, but then I started to like it. And it's another auction game, but it's a very different feel. And something about it thematically, I've gotten rid of it, but I would still play it if somebody brought it out, because it really works in an interesting way with how the money changes hands and goes back and forth. Colossal Arena, which is one that I have enjoyed, and I actually picked up a new variant of that. So it's a very cool, interesting betting game where it has some brinkmanship with it, where you're sort of partnering at times with people. It's in his betting trilogy. So that was very good. And then he's got Kingdoms, which is a cool game. Very interesting abstract game. Merchants of Amsterdam, I'm kind of speeding up here. Merchants of Amsterdam is a Dutch auction. It actually comes with a timer. I've got it, I haven't reviewed it. It's a game that I've really enjoyed. Very fun real estate game in a lot of ways. So there's that. Botswana, which has had so many different variations. I'm not even sure what the new version is called, but Botswana is like a kid's game. But I played that with gamers, and like we have loved it. So it's a very cool, odd game. Great Wall of China and High Society are two other lighter games that I've really liked from him. So there's so many games that he's come out with, and he hasn't really come out with any really recently that I've really liked at all. But definitely from about, I would say 95 to 2005 or so. Yeah, probably about then. Probably towards the earlier part of that, he's just really knocked it out of the park. And a lot of people accuse him of pasted on themes, but no, I don't think so. A lot of these are very thematic, I don't know, it's not almost like theme versus atmosphere, and that's a whole other video. It doesn't necessarily have to be a narrative story of specific individuals. It can be more abstract and more narrative and be more about the players against each other. There's still theme in that, and there's still, hooks into the atmosphere, into the look and feel of everything. So again, getting back to this theme elitist thing, which is just drives me crazy sometimes. It's like, well, theme is this and this and this and this. Well, theme is like a billion things. It's so many things. I mean, poker is thematic. And if you tell me poker is not thematic, I will say, have you played poker with your friends? And you tell me it's not thematic, I'll say, we've never played poker with friends. So there you go. There's that takeaway. And so that is the top 10 designers. So give me your top 10 designers and what you think of that. And there's some on here. There's some folks that I've played games that I love. They're going to be way up in my top 100 that they didn't show up on this list. But like I said, I kind of decided to do it by count of games that they've come out with. So anyway, take care. And there's my list. Thanks.